This is Bailey's Blues. I wrote this for Sheryl. It's an F blues, 12 measures. Traditional changes, not a lot of substitutions, but a lot of extensions on the melody notes. Sharp 9 and sharp 11 is the featured sound of this blues. A one, a two, a one, So in this tune, that I wrote for Sheryl, Bailey's Blues. The opening statement kind of is reminiscent of the Coltrane Equinox thing with the fifths, just setting up a nice little groove. And I thought the sharp 9 chord would work, but then I just wrote the A flat on the top because I knew Sheryl would come up with some amazing, really cool inversions. And that's sort of what I wrote the tune about. So you came up with these incredible inversions. Perhaps you can talk about that a little, because that really led to how I ended up accompanying you for the first solo.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, to me, finding good voicings is an obsession of mine, and I think it, hopefully, because you wrote that for me, it's my calling card, because I think it's very important, like a painter, you know, it's the color that you add. So, and I got the sense of this almost like a Equinox blues, maybe even has a little rock angle, so it could be a little more edgy. So I guess I think about my voicings in terms of that, like, it's a little provocative. That's the word I want to look. So I use this voicing.
Love that.
I use it for a lot of different things, but in this case, I'm using it for F7 sharp 9. I have the third, the flat 7, and the root and the sharp 9.
Wow, it's a beautiful chord.
I actually learned from Sid Jacobs. Thank you.
Really? Thank you, Sid.
He always said I'd thank him for it. But so anyway, so I thought this would be a little bit more provocative. I'm not trying to be nice and sweet about it. I'm being a little nasty about it, right? And then the next chord, it's a very simple thing. It's just a triad. But when you hear it against the B flat,
E triad.
an E triad, triad's the most fundamental thing.
Love it.
So anyway, that has a very, it's the tritone sub. It's, in some ways it's the simplest thing, but it also just has this sort of, wow, what's going to happen? Feeling of suspense. So that
especially against the beautiful sound.
Yeah.
Right.
So sometimes these simple things, a little triad makes, but against the right bass note.
And again, took a while to get there.
Yeah.
I mean, we've played this a lot.
Yeah.
And
That's
wow,
right.
great inversions.
Right. Because I got the sense of the song. It could be a little open, a little more open, and we could color outside the lines. So it doesn't have to be this picture perfect thing, you know. And that's I think the fun when we get into soloing it. But also too, like you playing this is very open. It's just the root and the fifth. It's a little bit of rock and roll thing. So it can imply getting a little bluesy and nasty, which we did, but also to maybe to add
Get
some
out there a little bit,
sharp 11s and flat, like those kinds of sounds. So it has that openness to it. It's not locking us in terms of. And I think we both did that at the beginning of each other's courses to leave that open door. Like I don't know, maybe you're going to be real, or you're going to be.
Right.
Right? So maybe
Just
you're
one fret.
That's right. It's a totally different story.
Right.
So it's like leaving that openness, and then once we got going, then we could maybe lock in
a little more.
what the harmony is going to be. But we did go back and forth between sort of an altered sound and then a real. So the difference of this sound or
The blues.
this sound, yeah.
The blues.
Yeah.
It is a blues.
Yeah.
I think it's key too to know the player that you're playing with.
Yeah.
Like we've played enough where I have a good idea of your playing, so just starting with this, I'm like, that's perfect because Sheryl can do her thing.
Right.
I know she's not going to just stay in the box for this one. So therefore I was able, and then you notice as we were going, I wasn't playing rhythm, I was giving more just little bass lines, almost like a bass and guitar duet.
Yeah.
Because again, I didn't want to lock you into, okay, now you're going to play this.
Right.
Because you were going someplace with it, and I really like that. So that's why I started to do that. And even sometimes I wasn't even in the chord structure.
Yeah.
I was just kind of playing some stuff leading back to the tonic.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's where you were leading.
Yeah.
So I think knowing the other player you're playing with is very important.
But I think it's also that thing of leaving that's we can be just a bass player sometimes, right? And we can play a lot of chords. So I think it's those different textures, but also again listening.
Absolutely.
Because I don't know what you're going to play till you play it, and my job is to support whatever you play, and that's why we both know that philosophy about comping is that again it's more about listening than playing. So that to do something simple like this, it opens up all the possibilities.
And it's not that easy to just. It's not that easy when we say like,
Right,
oh,
right.
we started so simple, but
Right.
yet you have to get a good tone.
Yeah.
And it has to sound pretty powerful because they
Yeah.
are fifths.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
you really have to,
Yeah.
I was concentrating so much on just getting a good,
Yeah.
solid, no finger noise, just a
Yeah.
nice background
Yeah.
for you to do your thing.
Right.
And it's simplicity.
And
like you
laying
said.
that groove in too, because it's a syncopated rhythm. 1, 2, 3, 4, ba, 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 ba. It's off of that. So it's got to also lock or it's going to be a mess.
Right.
So.
Which the second take was a mess. That's why we did the one we just played for you. See? We even take a few takes sometimes. So that was a pleasure. I really loved what you played there.
Oh, thank you. It was fun.
So in this tune that I wrote for Sheryl, Bailey's Blues, I tried to keep it simple, utilizing some extensions, chord extensions, the sharp 9, and then the sharp 11. Love that sound. So I wrote it into the melody. All right, there's the F7, sharp 9 with the flat 13. I mean with the sharp 11, excuse me. All right, so I tried to keep that knowing, again, Sheryl was going to put these really cool chords to that opening. And then the last phrase is based on the diminished over dominant, which I'm a huge fan of. Leading into back to the original form of that sharp 11 sound. So I tried to keep it simple and add a little color, a little tension in that diminished line, which ends up diminished chromatic back into the main phrase. So that's kind of was the concept of the melody. And then, starting simple with the fifths, and then you started to take off on some amazing soloing. So
Wow.
you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, this definitely has a connotation of being, well, there's two words, altered and alterations. They're not, there's something called the altered chord, which is a flat 13. But then there's something that has lots of alterations, which is a more diminished type dominant, which has a natural 13, which maybe has a little bit more snarl to it in some ways.
I like that.
But anyway, because those are so prominent in the melody, I always say about the tritone, if a creature from another planet comes down and asks you, what is the essence of jazz harmony? Tell them the tritone. That's it. And they won't eat your brain. They'll be in peace on Earth.
Can you write that down for me just
You
in
could
case?
save humanity if you just remember. The tritone sub is the essence of modern jazz harmony, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, and they've been doing it forever, and it still sounds good.
Right.
So those notes are so prominent, and they are provocative notes. They're got an attitude. They got a little spice to them. So that's why I wanted to make reflection of that in my solo. It's also with that sharp 9 is a bluesy sound.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep.
So you can't go wrong. You never go wrong with blues. But so I guess that's where I was coming from with soloing on it. Is just trying to bring out any of those altered sounds or alterations. So.
It was good. Yeah, I started my solo the same way, just with the
Yeah.
with those notes.
Yeah.
Try to make ideas with that to set the tone.
Yes.
because it's not your ordinary style blues like you're saying. It's open.
Yep.
And this is how I wrote it, to give the opportunity to play some outside stuff. Not always stay within that pentatonic, which is not a bad thing.
No.
But it's nice to stretch out a little bit. So this is the perfect opportunity to play the notes that you don't usually play and see what they sound like.
Yeah, absolutely.
See what they feel like, those tones, those outside tones. It's a great way to get used to them. That's kind of why I wrote the tune this way.
Yeah, I love it. I'm honored that you thought of me in this way. Really? No.
Well, really, that's never heard it put that way, but that's wonderful. So on this tune, Bailey's Blues, I wrote for Sheryl, arranging it was not that difficult, although we went back and forth whether we should use the equinox
Yeah.
vibe with the fifths. And we finally decided on that because of the, I don't know why, but it just sounded good and left it open so we could play more outside stuff, basically.
Yeah, really, yes.
But otherwise, it's a basic 12-bar blues. Really not much more than that. No alter changes,
But
really.
you know what's interesting is instead of having a traditional turnaround at bar 9, you just have a C pedal.
Right.
But that keeps it very open. Now when we got later on, we did turn the changes into a more of a traditional 12 bar.
Right.
But I think that feeling of that pedal, because you could move all kinds of sounds. Against that.
Right.
Right? So it's not locking you in to
a
anything.
5 chord.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think that's a really nice feature of it too. And then, then as we went on, we did define it a little bit more in a real kind of typical jazz blues way.
Right.
But I think that's the appeal of the song, is that we could have stayed there too and just kept it on the outer edges if we wanted.
Right.
You know, but it just felt like it was having that momentum to go there.
Right. And it was only for a chorus or two that we put it into the tradition. It was like so refreshing.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, right.
You know, it was like, oh, wow, listen to that.
Yeah.
What's that new sound?
That's really true. I mean, you can't play out unless you know what in is, because then it's just all out.
Right. Exactly. We also got into whole tone a little bit, just based on that tritone right there.
Yeah, it's a very, it's an appealing sound.
It is an appealing sound. Yeah. Great stuff.
Yeah, and but practicing it, I mean, same process as I was talking about earlier, is really slowing it down, making sure I had the melody right, because I especially that on that pedal point, and because we were going to play that, I had to take a minute to really, where did I play? I think I was playing it somewhere else, and I finally found the place where I'm playing it now. So again, I made a bunch of mistakes in order to get it right. So
that is the beauty of the guitar, the amount of possibilities you can play the same thing.
Yeah.
It's such a, once you get the concept of that, like you said, you can really experiment and get the right place on the guitar to play it.
But also, you know, it was cool that you gave me the space to add what I wanted to do with the voicings. So that was sort of the other thing. Like I really learned at single note for a while, and then I, again, used my imagination to think about, as I said, provocative sounds or maybe unusual sounds that sort of bring out the outer tensions in it. So that was cool. I mean, you know, which is cool writing. I mean, I think that's why we get along so good. We write in a similar way in that sometimes some people write things and they want you to just play the ink and not.
That's it, right.
You know, and you wrote something allowing me to add my personality to it. And same with the stuff that I wrote for this duo, but, you know, it's not always like that. Sometimes you're just like, okay, just play what they wrote, don't embellish. So it was fun for me to like put that in my imagination, and I did go back and forth with different things till I kind of settled on like these are really say everything I need to say.